We have lots to discuss here in today's video, including taking a look at an article from the Bleacher Report looking on a variety of trade scenarios involving Erik Karlsson, and focusing on 4 teams, what an offer might look like to land the star defenseman, looking at teams like the Dallas Stars, Ottawa Senators, Detroit Red Wings, and the Carolina Hurricanes. Plus, we have some big signings today as well, including a big one in Winnipeg and another one in Calgary. The NHL's also made an announcement for its streaming of games available on a new platform. Plus, a bunch of NHL draft picks are about to have their rights expire in August. We'll take a look at what teams are in danger of losing players and whether or not they'll sign, or what the odds are with all of that, coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots of news to take a look at today. Plus, we're going to look at an Erik Karlsson trade scenario involving an interesting article I came across earlier today. I just want to forewarn you as well, just in case you hear anything in the background. We just started having a major thunderstorm here where I live, so lots of thunder and lightning and rain in the background. So I'm not sure if you can hear it at all, but if you do, that's what's happening. Big signing today in Winnipeg. Defenseman Dylan Samberg and the Winnipeg Jets avoid salary arbitration hearing, which was good for both parties in that sense. We knew that there was a big gap based on what was submitted, because they were pretty close to the hearing getting underway. I think it would have been held this afternoon had they not come to terms this morning. We knew that Elliotte Friedman reported that the player was looking for around 6, and that the team was offering like 2.5. But that was on a 1-year contract as well, and we also know that it's very strategic what they submit. You can't really go by those numbers too much. Ultimately, they settled on a 3-year contract at $5.75 million per year. So, I mean, that's a pretty good contract. Overall, I think for what he brings, he can play lots of minutes. Definitely a solid top 4 defenseman. This is going to buy up a couple of years of unrestricted free agency as well. So at this rate, unless he's extended, he would be a UFA at age 29. He's got some good experience now under his belt with Winnipeg, and got some pretty good defensive metrics. Pretty good passer. He just doesn't make a ton of mistakes. He's just a pretty steady, good puck mover, good defender. He's got great size, 6'4", 215 pounds. Just really helps, has really become a good part of that decor on the back end, play top 4 minutes. So I like this contract for both sides, and it's a good compromise based on what each party was looking for. And we'll see what they can talk in a couple of years on an extension if things continue to progress the way that they have. So the only arbitration case that remains would be Nick Robertson of the Toronto Maple Leafs. They still have a few days to come to terms on a contract to avoid that process as well. But at least we know now, at most, there'll be one, and that's if they can avoid it. They have until August the 3rd is when that hearing is set to get underway. So August 1st, which would be Friday, they would be required to submit their numbers for what each side is looking for in a contract, and then they'd have up until the hearing starts on the 3rd to complete negotiations and try to settle on their own. Although in this case with Robertson and some of the other guys like Samberg, I think there was an appetite for a longer term contract. I don't know that there's going to be a ton of appetite in this scenario for more than like a year anyway. So we'll see. But like I said, I think it would be nice to see them avoid the process. It's certainly not fun to go through at all. The Calgary Flames today also announced a contract extension, which we surprisingly haven't had a lot of extensions just yet here in the offseason, but we do have another one today. The Calgary Flames have extended Martin Pospisil. The forward gets a 3-year extension at $2.5 billion. I put up 25 points last year. Certainly not afraid to play physicals. Got a good size, big body. Pretty good member of that bottom 6. Pretty good skater as well. He's had a few times where he's crossed the line and got in trouble with player safety, but overall, I think for what he brings, to be on a 3-year deal, at $2.5 million for the bottom 6, I have no problems with that contract at all. I think it's a pretty good deal for both the player to get a little bit of security and for the team to get a little bit of stability in that part of their lineup. As I mentioned as well, we also had an announcement today from the NHL announcing a partnership with DAZN. The streaming service gets a multi-year agreement to drive international growth of NHL.TV. So DAZN becomes the exclusive home of the NHL.TV in nearly 200 countries. Now, I know a lot of people are complaining sometimes about the NHL is available in North America. Obviously, the DAZN platform has obviously looking at things from an international standpoint in other countries, they might actually have better service than some of the things that are offered. I know like the Sportsnet Plus program in Canada, just the price just went way up. A lot of people are very unhappy there. And then of course with TSN stuff in Canada as well, it's obviously just regional stuff. So it's not, then of course in the States, there's different platforms like the ESPN and whatnot. So, like I said, they want to grow the game internationally. This is a pretty good partnership to do it. I just think there's a lot of fans that I wish they had better options to see out of market games and whatnot, in Canada and the United States. But this has a pretty good potential to help grow the game internationally for sure. Now, as I mentioned, there's a bunch of NHL draft picks that are about to have their rights expire with the teams that drafted them coming up in a couple of weeks on August the 15th. Now, there's a new article today from Puckpedia, of course, is one of the go-to resources for all of this stuff, outlining a bunch of these players that will have their rights expire as of August 15th. There's a couple that are kind of pending because obviously when they're playing NCAA hockey, they have to file for their graduation in order for that to be part of the process here for them to lose, for the NHL team to lose their rights if they're not signed by the 15th. So the players in question include Anaheim pick William Francis, who was a 2019 sixth-rounder. The Bruins had Ty Gallagher, who was a 2021 seventh-rounder, and Jake Schmaltz, who was a seventh-rounder in 2019. The Buffalo Sabres have Matteo Constantini, who was a 2020 round pick. The Columbus Blue Jackets have Aiden Hreshak as a 2021 third-round pick. The Blackhawks have Dominic James, who was a 2022 sixth-rounder. The Avalanche have Hank Kempf, who's a 2021 seventh-rounder. Dallas Stars have Jack Barr, a 2021 fifth-rounder. The Red Wings have Reed Savage, a 2021 fourth-rounder. The Oilers have three players, including Matt Capone, who was a 2023 seventh-rounder. Joel Mata as a 2022 seventh-rounder. And Luka Munzenberg, who was a 2021 third-rounder as well. The LA Kings have Braden Doyle, who's a 2019 sixth-rounder, and Jack Hughes, 2022 second-rounder. Of course, Jack Hughes is not to be confused with the former first overall pick in New Jersey Devils star player Jack Hughes, but Jack is the son of Montreal Canadiens general manager Kent Hughes. Now, I did see some reports from LA media suggesting that Hughes will get a contract before the expiry date. So I guess we should see that, although it hasn't been completed as of yet. The Nashville Predators have Isaac Waithers, the 2019 sixth-rounder. We also have Luke Reed, a 2020 sixth-rounder with Nashville as well. The Islanders have Cameron Berg, 2021 fourth-rounder. The Rangers have Zachary Kerp, a 2022 sixth-rounder. We have the Kraken with Justin Janik, 2021 seventh-rounder. The San Jose Sharks have Tim Spitzer, 2020 seventh-rounder. The Lightning have Alex Gagne, 2021 sixth-rounder, and Kyle Coyne, a 2020 sixth-rounder as well. The Leafs have John Fusco, 2020 seventh-rounder, and Wyatt Shingol, 2020 seventh-rounder. The Vancouver Canucks have Jackson Coons, a 2020 fourth-round pick, and the Washington Capitals have Brett Johnson, a 2021 third-round pick. So there's a whole bunch of players there. Now, some of these players apparently have signed contracts in other pro leagues, so they're not expected to sign contracts with the NHL clubs that drafted them, and their rights will expire. They'll become unrestricted free agents in the view of the NHL, so should they ever have an opportunity to play National Hockey League games in the future, they'd be free to sign with any team. But obviously we know that right now, of course, with the next CBA kicking in next year, the rights and how long teams hold rights and stuff will be kind of centralized and standardized across no matter where they're coming from. But we know right now, depending if you're coming from major junior hockey or if you're going into NCAA Europe, whatnot, the rules are different for how long teams have to hold those rights. So that's why there's a variety of players drafted anywhere from 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022, and some different cases here. So a bunch of those guys. The only one I've heard of that is expected to sign is Jack Hughes, but it wouldn't be shocking if we find out that there's maybe a couple of more last-minute teams have a change of heart or something, or offer a contract. The other thing, keep in mind too, that teams are only allowed to carry so many pro contracts. They can only have 50 contracts. So, sometimes they're kind of managing their things throughout the summer, and they wait and see if there's room to offer an ELC or whatnot to some of these guys as well. So I don't know that we'll see many more get contracts, but it is remotely possible. We still have a couple of weeks to go, but those rights are about to expire. Now, as I mentioned, I want to look at an article from Bleacher Report suggesting 4 different trade scenarios for Erik Karlsson. He's one of the top names on the trade bait boards across NHL Insiders, and a player that we very much are expected to be seen traded either through the offseason or sometime during the next season for sure. I think if Pittsburgh and Kyle Dubas would have had their way, they would have moved the contract here by now, and you just never know. We still have, basically all of August and September through before the season starts. Of course, we'll see training camps get underway in September, so there's still probably a good solid 5-6 weeks before much stuff starts happening in terms of camp and players showing up to go into the NHL cities and all that type of stuff. So there's time for things to happen, but we just don't know how much activity we're going to see. And there's a lot of reporters and insiders think there's going to be a lot, but it's been quiet here as of late, so we're going to have to wait and see. So like I said, this article suggests 4 teams. I want to kind of talk about all 4. We'll look at all 4 offers and see what we think of them. And of course, we'll look at the one I think it kind of maybe makes the most sense. Now, in Carolina, be the first team it mentions, looking at a return of Shane Gostisbehere, a second-round pick, and a prospect, and it says like a mid-level prospect, so not their absolute best player, so obviously not like Nikishin or something like that. Would Carolina trade Gostisbehere, a second-rounder, and a mid-level prospect for Erik Karlsson? Now, they have a pretty good cap situation, so they wouldn't need Pittsburgh to retain any money, so that's good. I guess they have to ask themselves, is Erik Karlsson an upgrade on Shane Gostisbehere? From an offensive standpoint. Now, the one thing I've said about the Carolina Hurricanes is I don't know that they really have a true number 1 power play quarterback. I mean, they have a really good decor. They have lots of players back there that I really like, and I like Gostisbehere. He did go through some tough times during his end of his era there with the Flyers, but really for the most part of his career, he's been fairly consistent. But is he really a number 1 offensive defenseman? I don't know. I think he's probably better suited if he's your second best offensive defenseman. So really, I think there's room on that team for both Karlsson and Gostisbehere. You need a number of players that can move the puck and generate offense from the back end. Obviously, they have some other defenders back there that are good defenders, good defensemen, but are not going to give you a ton of offense. Obviously, guys like Slavin and Walker and a few of these other guys back there. Chatfield's okay, like he'll give you a little bit of offense. So it just kind of depends, right? So I think there could be a possibility that Carolina would not want to include Gostisbehere. I don't know that they're dramatically better in that sense, right? That's the thing. I think Gostisbehere is good enough that even if you still think Karlsson's the better offensive defenseman, is it significant enough of an upgrade to make the move, to pay the bigger salary, eat up more of your cap space, and to give up a few other assets as well? I don't think so. So ultimately, I think Carolina would be interested. I do think they're one of the teams that does make a lot of sense for Karlsson. I just don't think this would be the trade. I really don't. And they don't have to move a lot of money off their roster either, because like I said, they're in a good cap situation. So I can see them including a roster player just to make sure that the cap's not too tight. Maybe they go for more of a futures trade, and maybe it's more like a Bradley Nadeau, or maybe they do offer Nikishin or something along those lines, right? I don't think Gostisbehere would be included with the trade, though. I really don't. But that's my take. The second team they mentioned is the Ottawa Senators. Now, I know Ottawa's obviously there's a lot of history with Karlsson. And I know there's lots of fans that would love to see him come back. There's some that think he doesn't fit the timeline, some that think he doesn't fit for what the direction we're going. And I can see a variety from both sides. The proposed trade here is Nick Jensen, a future first-round pick, probably in 2027, since they're still facing a punishment and are likely not going to have a 2026 first, and a prospect. Now, I'm not sure who the prospect would be, just mentions a prospect. So, clearly the Sens don't have a super deep prospect pool. They did make, in my opinion, a lot of good selections in the 2025 draft. So I don't know who the prospect would be, and that might play a role here. But obviously with Jensen, his contract would help with the money standpoint. I think Nick Jensen had a really good first half of the season with Ottawa. I think he was a terrific partner for Thomas Chabot. I think that even though he's a little bit older and he's definitely more defensive minded, I really think he was a great fit. The team was definitely a lot better defensively this past year, and he played a role in it. Now, in the second half of the year, he started having issues with his hip, and he did have to have a fairly significant surgery once the season was over. You could tell he was trying to get his way through it, but it was impacting his play. He couldn't skate as fast. He wasn't as mobile, and definitely affected him on the D side of it as well. So, all in all, you could tell that he was not anywhere near 100%, and he was just trying to gut it out and help the team, which is admirable to a certain extent. But I guess there's some concerns over how will he rebound from this surgery? Will he be 100%? Is he going to be impacted? He's only signed for another season, so maybe maybe he doesn't have a long future in Ottawa anyway. But then is Karlsson the replacement? I mean, I don't know, right? See, that's tough to say, but I can understand why it'd be tempting and why a lot of Sens fans like this type of deal. And if Jensen's not going to stick around long term, and you acquired Jordan Spence, maybe Jordan Spence can be the new Nick Jensen, right? And maybe you can have Erik Karlsson be more of a third pair guy who can play on your second power play. Your third, Karlsson can still log a lot of minutes, but you don't have to have him play necessarily like as you can be more strategic with your minutes is kind of what I'm getting at. When he's on the ice, when he starts, he doesn't have to have as big of a role. I don't know. I mean, having him back there besides Chabot and Sanderson it's intriguing. It really is. But again, I don't know. I mean, would Ottawa be better served by having a more defensive-minded defenseman back there? Because they do have Zub, who's very defensive-minded. They've got Jordan Spence, who just came over from L.A., who's got pretty good defensive metrics early in his career. So, I mean, to have one player on the right side that's a little bit more risk-reward, more of a puck mover, more of an offensive threat, wouldn't be horrible. So, I don't know. I'm not entirely sold that this is a great deal for them, but it's an intriguing concept nonetheless. It offers Detroit is the third team to look at. It offers a first-round pick, top 15 protected, and a prospect, with the prospect either being Carter Mazur or Shea. I don't know that gets it done. Pittsburgh would like the first. I don't know how they feel about the prospect, so I'm not sure that gets it done. And Detroit, they definitely need to revamp their blue line for sure. They don't have enough guys that can defend back there, and at the same time though, they don't have a guy like Karlsson that can really rack up the points either. I mean, Seider is by far their best defenseman. He's pretty good on both sides of the puck, but Karlsson would definitely be stronger offensively. So I'm not sure. I don't know if I really love that deal for Detroit, and would Detroit do that deal? Dallas is the fourth team. It mentions a return of Ilya Lyubushkin, probably more so for the money standpoint, Maverick Bourque, and a second-round pick. I think the Penguins would like to get their hands on Bourque. He's a good young player with a bigger role and playing with some different guys. I think he could produce more. Lyubushkin, I think, is more about just having an NHL guy in your back end if you're Pittsburgh and helping the money work a little bit better for Dallas. Now, of course, I don't know if there's any retained salary here. I still think Dallas would be tricky to make this work. I know Dallas would love to get Karlsson. So I like that trade for Dallas. I don't know that it's enough, though, for Pittsburgh, because basically Lyubushkin's there just as a placeholder, just as for money. So you're looking at Maverick Bourque and a second rounder. I don't know that that's enough for Pittsburgh to pull the trigger. We've heard that Kyle Dubas has been asking for some pretty high price tags. So, like, when you look at some of these other offers, you've got, a prospect in the second round, besides Gostisbehere from Carolina. You got, with Ottawa, you got an NHL player too, and then a first and a prospect. Detroit, you get a first and a prospect, whereas in Dallas, you've got a prospect and a second. So I think that Dallas would have to increase the offer. I think it would have to be more like maybe Bischel and Bourque. Then you're kind of mortgaging your future a little bit, but I don't know if you do that deal. If you really think, if you're convinced that he makes you better and you can win a cup, then you do it. But if not, you proceed with caution, right? I don't know. In all honesty, you've got I think the Detroit and Dallas offers to me, I just don't think they're good enough. And between Ottawa and Carolina, the Carolina offer probably is maybe the best one, but then you get the first round pick in there with Ottawa instead. I don't know, right? See, it's so hard to say because we don't know who the prospect would be for the Sens. They do have some interesting names they could put in there. That's for sure. So again, difficult to say exactly, but I think the most intriguing one is Ottawa because of the connection. But I think Dallas or Carolina is a more likely destination, and based on their cap situation and the fact that, to me, the team that makes the most sense, because I could see them looking at Karlsson as being the missing ingredient, the type of player that they, out of all these teams that don't have, it would be the Canes. Now, Detroit could say that too, but they're also not a contending team at the moment. Out of the four teams, they're the one team that wasn't in the playoffs last year. So you can make an argument that they probably need a guy like that too to help get them there, but it's tricky. So I don't know. I'm not really sure what the best option is there. I think Carolina is the team that makes the most sense, but I do like the Ottawa trade. I do like the Dallas trade. I think Dallas, if Dallas would upgrade the defenseman in the package, it would be a lot better chance. They might have to also increase that second rounder to a first. That would be tricky too. But let me know your thoughts amongst these four trades for Erik Karlsson. Which is the most likely? Where do you think it makes the most sense? And even if you think it's not necessarily a realistic thing, because this is all hypothetical, let me know which of these offers you actually like the most, and if you're the Penguins that you would be more likely to pull the trigger on. And we'll discuss that further in the comments. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.